Ever since I can remember, my mother told me stories about growing up in the lap of luxury in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Mother grew up in the home of one of America's first female black millionaires, Sara Spencer Washington, or the Madam as she was called. Mother was her niece and was adopted as a toddler so as to become the heiress to the Madam's hair care and beauty products empire. This empire was called Apex. My family's legacy intrigued me, but by the time that I was ready to make this documentary, my mother's health had deteriorated to such a point that she was no longer able to help me with this endeavor. It was not only a personal loss for me, but it was a loss of a great source of information about the life of Madam Sara Spencer Washington. My mother set aside a leather-bound edition of the Apex Hair and News Company monthly magazine for the year 1935.
Your mother, after the Madam died, tore down the inn, and then she built that house. It was the house. You heard about 1010 from New York all the way down. You heard from 1010. It was quite a house. Archie Morgan, he was the Madam's chemist. Bright, smart man.
Now, apparently she started making her own products. That's the legend has it.
I'm sure she did. I'm sure she started on the kitchen stove. You melt some petroleum jelly and put some bergamot in it, and then she had some hairdressing. I mean, that's what it was. She was a very bright woman, though. I told you everything she touched turned to gold. She started a business, and she started the right business. But I was at the Waldorf in New York once when your mother was a guest speaker at this convention. And I remember her saying one thing, that the Apex business was one of the businesses that survived during the Depression. 1726,
Right.
Arctic Avenue.
Right.
Well, that's where the Madam lived. It was a corner house. It was big. It was a beautiful house with a porch all the way around the side of it. The greatest people in the world come to visit her. All kinds of people come to visit her.
Celebrities?
All celebrities and kings and queens, everybody else the Madam had there. You know, when you're a millionaire, you can do all kinds of things in those days.
Speaking of hotels,
Okay.
the Brigantine Hotel,
That's the one she bought.
that was a big, big hotel, right?
It certainly was. Beachfront is all beach all the way around Brigantine. But I tell you, she had a big mouth, and after a while they served us and everybody else. She did. It shouldn't be hard to understand. When you have that much power in a city, you also have the money that goes along with what makes the power.
I was active in elective politics back in the 70s, and one of my mentors was Horace Bryant. He was a city commissioner. Horace was the first African American to serve in a governor's cabinet under Governor Richard Hughes. He was the second African American elected to office here in town. The first was Carlos Lassaigne. Commissioner Bryant took me under his wing, and in one conversation he was recalling about some of his earlier efforts for election, which were unsuccessful. And his first effort back in the 50s, when no black man was running for office in this town, he had the assistance of Sara Spencer Washington, and she basically made his campaign possible. She gave him her limousine so that he could be driven from place to place and meet with people. She paid for the lawn signs, she paid for billboards, she paid for ads in the newspaper and the radio. She basically made his campaign possible. She saw a young, bright black man, and she wanted to do everything she could to help him. So that's how I first learned of her. And then I became kind of interested. I said, well, who was this lady back in the 30s and the 40s who was a millionaire in Atlantic City and she was black? That's simply amazing. You know what I'm saying? So the more I looked into it, I said, this is an extraordinary lady. And the thing that caught my attention most was she got her start going door to door. A lot of people don't have an appreciation for just how difficult it is to try to sell a product door to door, because the first thing you have to sell is yourself. And then you sell your product. And Madam Washington, from what I'm told, because I never met her, wish I had, was a very persuasive person, someone that you always took seriously, and someone that you did not dare ignore. Sarah Spencer Washington came to town in 1913, and I think what she saw, rather than the segregation, what she saw is what a lot of other black leaders of that generation saw. They saw opportunity. They saw critical mass of black people all in one place. Hey, we can do business here because we got enough people to do business with. During World War II, she raised hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings bonds, but she purchased a $10,000 bond of her own. Think about that. Back in the 1940s, a $10,000 bond was a big deal. The United States government was so impressed with her efforts that they permitted her to christen the SS Harriet Tubman. Well, the most immediate impact was jobs. This lady single-handedly was creating hundreds of jobs. I mean, just in Apex Beauty alone, she had, all told, she had about 215 people on the payroll of Apex. But then you've got Apex Resort, you have the Apex Golf Course, you have the Brigantine Hotel. To create jobs in that fashion is a pretty big deal. Anybody that can create jobs, in my opinion, is making a big impact on the community. But her impact also was that she was an extraordinary role model, and she showed people that you can do it. But more importantly, she helped people do it too. I mean, she had about 4,500 agents at the height of her Apex empire. She had about 4,000 graduates a year. And many of those graduates would start their own business with an interest-free loan that she made to them. So she was really helping people get going in life. She was giving them the skill, and she was giving them the startup cash, and she was selling them the product that they were using to run their business. And so it was win-win, because she was doing well, and the people that she was helping were doing well also. She was a philanthropist to the sense that any business person who acts that way can be. She was.
And here's another one. And Madam Sarah Spencer Washington became automatically a leader just in doing what she thought she should be able to do. And she did it, and did it very well. She didn't just set a standard, she set the bar so high because of how well she took care of everything and managed everything and ran her businesses. Active Women's Club elects Madam Washington for the 4th time. There's a whole group dressed in her finery. She didn't become the head of the Business Professional Women's for 4 terms without a reason. She was a very capable person, an ideal one to set the tone. Everybody couldn't emulate her to become her, although they'd like to, but they could do things they wouldn't have done if it wasn't for her setting the tone.
She was a Christian woman. I think she went to St. Augustine, but she came to Asbury so much. Because we were right, Asbury Church was, her office was across the street on this corner, and the drugstore was on the other corner. She was a lovely person, but she did so much for black. She would talk to the young girls. She tried to show them how to keep their appearance up, their morals up. She told them about these boys, not these boys, you know what I mean. Things, she was trying to teach. And appearance and etiquette and things like this, and this is absolute truth. That's the truth, because I remember her good. And she opened a beauty school, and the beauty school was right, I'm thinking on Marduk Avenue. They could not do hair or have a beauty shop unless they had a license. And we were taught as black They called us colored folks and Negroes then. I hate the word colored folks and Negroes. That's what they called us then. And she taught everybody how to, shampoo your hair. They didn't say shampoo then because they didn't have that English. They said wash your hair, straighten your hair, and they had the big things to teach you how to do your hair and make your hair look nice. And then if you didn't have money to get curlers, she said you don't have your hair all over, you straighten your hair. She showed people how to get paper bags, fold the paper bags up and make curlers. And like you see some of the kids now with this, and me knowing better, my grandchildren didn't look like that. I wouldn't let them. But you see a lot of the children's hair sticking up, ponytail, part pushed back here and sticking up. If she was living, she'd have a fit. She said, you curl your hair. You make yourself look pretty. We are just as attractive as white people. Sarah told us all the time that we are somebody. She made us all feel important. Hold your head high, but always keep your appearance up, she said. You know one thing she used to say? Be a lady. Be a lady. And I've always tried to be a lady. And I worked in the drugstore. Evelyn Harrison worked there, and by her being light, bright, you know how they used to say? Evelyn was attractive, and we were good friends. And that's the way she met Mercer Ellington. He came in the drugstore all the time. She was in the cashier's booth, and she was light. And that's the way they got married.
She was a very dignified looking and acting woman. She was a businesswoman, very much so. And she was kind and cordial. Yes, I went to the Apex beauty school. You could go in and have your hair done at a minimum charge because they were students. After that, I also went to the Apex Beauty shop, which was practically across the street from the business office and the school.
Now, I heard a rumor that you were maybe a model in your younger days, huh?
Yes, I posed for some hair modeling.
What do you think was the key to Madam Sarah Spencer Washington's success?
There was not any other African American person that had any beauty culture expertise in Atlantic City at that time, so she didn't have any competition.
I used all Madam's product, and I was in quite a few of the hair shows, because as you can see, I had a beautiful head of hair, and the hairdressers loved for me to be in their shows. I'm telling you, the girls used to come in the bank and bet 50 cents that this was not my hair, my own hair.
At the end of Jefferson would be Ontario, and that's where the Apex Rest was, and later became your mother's fancy, fancy house that was really, really outstanding. It was the first $70,000 home built on the north side here in Atlantic City. Right next door to that property, she had a warehouse. But your grandmother had more than 200 people working at that particular warehouse. And she shipped thousands of items a day through the local Atlantic City post office, which legend has it that the post office had to be enlarged because she was shipping so many 25-cent cans of grease out a day that it was just mind-boggling for the postal system to handle it. So it was really, really a great institution here in Atlantic City to know that an African-American woman not only owned and operated Apex Hair Care and News, but she also operated 4 other businesses that were fantastic here in Atlantic City. She also had a business that a few people know about. She owned a golf course, the first African-American golf course on the East Coast, as far as my research tells me. It was called Apex Country Club, and it was a 9-hole golf course. She also did something that was very, very nice. We had a colored soldiers' home on Arctic Avenue here in Atlantic City. And it was ran by a gentleman by the name of C. Morris Kane, who became very good friends with your grandmother. And at one point in time, in 1935, the YMCA was running on really bad times. And Mr. Kane went to your grandmother and asked to borrow $200 to keep the operation running. Madam Washington was part of her community and part of Atlantic City like no other woman before. I had an aunt by the name of Aunt Lucindy from Philadelphia who attended that school back in the 30s, who became a beautician and had her beauty shop in West Philadelphia up on Master Street. A thing came out called the Marcel comb. Madam C.J. Walker had come out with the hot comb. But by the time that your grandmother's business was rolling along, there was a comb. You clip it really fast, and you could actually make wonderful curls in the hair that went this way. Your grandmother was able to come up with different devices for drying the hair so that it would go from shampoo to dry. But she turned what was a mom and pop operation into a business, and a multi-million-dollar business of that. The price point was very good for the over-the-counter item or for the mail order item. And the price point was between 35 and 50 cents. You got to remember, C.J. Walker died in 1919. So your mother's business came on after that. So it was phase 2 of black hair care. So it was really quite interesting. It was just a city within a city that was one of the greatest black cities in the United States of America, because African Americans did well. And the reason they did so very well, they were all, most of them were very well educated. Black people couldn't take their convention to the south side of town, to the convention center. All the conventions were held on the north side of town. This building was filled to the brim with exhibitors from all over the United States came to Atlantic City for this convention that was put together by Madam Sarah Spencer Washington back in 1941. That logo, that would be compared to the Nike swoosh right now. I mean, you'd see this and be a black American, and you know it was a company owned and operated by black folks. In the background here is the Soldiers' Home, and these were all the people who attended that convention in 1941. This is Mrs. Joe Louis, the wife of the heavyweight champion of the world.
When I visited with the distributor, I told him I was from Apex, and he was really not very nice. And I'm being kind when I say he was not very nice. He said, "I don't like them, and I don't like you." And so I laughed and smiled, and I said, "Well, sir, just tell me something. Why don't you like me? You just met me." And we both laughed, and he said, "Oh, well, that was, and we laughed, and we made a joke out of something that was real not nice. And before you know it, we had made friends. We made friends with the company, and the guy gave me an order for $6,000 to take back to the company. And that was a joyous occasion, because when I drove back down to Atlantic City, which is like 50 miles or so from Philadelphia, everybody at the company was so elated, and they were hugging me and making me a celebrity inside that company, because that was the biggest order they had received that week. And they sent me to New York, and I got a big customer there. That guy gave us a $15,000 order. And so now, remember, I started off with $50 a week. Now my commissions tripled all of that. And I said, I want to be in sales. I think Robert knew all about this, and so Robert came aboard, and then instead of me having, I guess, all of from Cape May, New Jersey up to Niagara Falls, New York, Robert began to share that. You were concentrating in
East Coast.
On the East Coast.
I recall when I started with Reliance Drug in New York City, they gave me an order for 6 gross of assorted merchandise. I wound up much later selling as much as 30 gross of merchandise. because we came on in our sales group with an incentive, one free with a dozen. And I think we kind of set the track record for a lot of other small companies that were coming along behind us. And of course, at the same time, we didn't neglect the beauty trade, which had been Madam Sarah Spencer Washington's mainstay. She had those, I think it was 10 or 12 beauty schools. They were located up and down in the main cities, Chicago, Baltimore, and New York, and Boston. You could just name the different places. Newark, New Jersey, there was one, Richmond, Virginia, Atlanta, Georgia. You see, in that day, there was such a heavy discrimination among the races and the people. Black people who had accomplished something kind of got together. The Apex Risk represented a place where dignified, classic educated blacks would come to Atlantic City, and they would come into the Apex Rest and utilize that facility. They would be from different places, and everybody knew Mrs. Washington. Everybody knew her. She was a well-to-do lady all up and down the coast and had done a fabulous job of PR work of letting people know who she was, and what she had accomplished. She had accomplished a great deal.
He said he was down in South Carolina, one of them places. Walter went in, he said he introduced himself. He says, my name is Walter Jackson, I work for the Apex Company. And he said, this guy said, boy, I ain't seen nobody from that company in years. He said, I'm glad to see you. I want to buy some more of that product. And Walter said, he said, yeah, which one? He said, you know, I want some of that powder you sell. He said, I can't get over these folks walking around here with white faces and black necks. See, most black women wanted to be white.
Yeah, everybody was struggling.
And there were these products that these companies made, Apex and Madam Walker and Poro. And it was a cream that they put on their faces, and that would lighten the skin. Of course, later on, when the Federal Drug Administration started investigating this thing, they said you can't prove this, and you have to stop advertising. They used to have hair growers, Apex hair grower, and folks would buy it because they wanted to make their hair grow. Well, actually, these ointments with sulfur that were in all these various products stimulated the growth, stimulated the scalp, and that enabled the hair follicle to open up, and then instead of coming up and curling up, it would be able to come straight out and grow longer.
They sold well because it was something new, and it was something that came from our people direct, and white people believed that we knew what we were doing.
So our effort was to go in, and then you find somebody, friend of yours, who lived in the area. And you said, I tell you what, I want you to go into drugstore on the corner of 5th and 7th and ask them for Apex hair products. Now, you don't have to worry, my darling, because they don't have the product, so you don't buy anything. But you just keep going in there asking for it, keep going in there asking for it. And we did that all over the country.
Yeah.
And before you know it, all of these fringe areas, those are the integration kind of things that were happening. And before you knew it, we start getting orders from those stores. And when the people would go in and they would see the product, they start buying it.
I met her. Yes, I met her and had talks with her. She was a strong personality and a very serious-minded woman. When she met you, she sat and examined you with her eyes, and then she would fire questions at you to see where you were going or where you were coming from. You understand? She was trying to discover you in your area. She would do that and would only frighten some people. But when she did it with me, I felt like just relaxed because I felt like this is a learning opportunity.
Robert mentioned earlier the boardwalk, the beautiful boardwalk, but there was a section, I don't know what, Arctic Avenue Beach,
Missouri,
where all of the black folks used to have to go. But the rest of the boardwalk was off limits.
Glossatina was a hair product that made your hair shine, and we called it Glossatina.
The beauty culture courses that they taught was with hot combs and pressing oils.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you had to have that oil. And the oil would
kind of protect the strands.
Protect the strands of the hair. But those hot combs would singe, and boy, you could go in some of those beauty.
No, you smoke everywhere.
Hairdressers would be eating chicken and doing the customer's hair, and chicken bones would be dropping down in the customer's hair, and they pressing it.
It was a vision and a dream to do something, determined to break out of that shell where black women were just locked in. And they had to break out. And they broke out. And not only that, but they did something for all of us. They gave us a spirit of faith that there's a possibility.